it took me a long time for me to let someone else help me. Again, I would look at it, I'm like, Tiger Woods has a swing coach. He has someone that works with him. Michael Jordan had someone that worked with him. Muhammad Ali had a boxing trainer. Why the hell would I think I'm so special that I can't have a coach?
Hey, everybody. Thank you for joining us again on our series, The Path to the Pinnacle. Myself and Rich Rossi are here today with Jose, the Boston Mass Raymond, a award-winning championship level bodybuilder. He's here to talk to us today about where he's come from and how he's gotten to the pinnacle of his career. Thanks, Jose, for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So obviously you rose to the highest level in your sport, right? Can you tell us maybe a few things that were key in getting you to where you are today?
Well, in my particular sport, like any sport, genetics plays a huge role. And, if you're 5'2", you're not likely going to play in the NBA. I was basically born to do this. I started off at a very young age. My older brother had me doing pull-ups and push-ups, and I started responding really fast. As Rich can tell you, in high school, I was, I wasn't the tallest, but I was certainly the biggest muscular guy on the field. In any sport I played, just naturally, that's what I looked like. So after, training for football and wrestling in high school, my brother convinced me to compete in the New England Bodybuilding Championships back in 1993. I was 18 years old and I won the overall, and I won in front of, 1,000 fans, and the adrenaline, that rush of winning and knowing it was just me. I no longer had to depend on a quarterback or a coach or anyone else. It was just me. And I knew that that's what I was born to do. So that's where I put all my energy from a young age. From 18 on, I went to college. I went to Plymouth State and studied exercise science. And, I was able to immediately put my studies into something that I was going to use. A lot of people don't use their education. I knew when I was taking structure and function, anatomy and physiology and kinesiology, that I was going to use that. And I could use my own body as a cheat sheet. And I was really, really, for the first time in my life, excited about my education, excited about going to class and learning and being able to implement that into my life, into my my job. Once I graduated college and I was able to do it full time, I started winning at the national level. And winning, I ended up winning 8 national titles in 3 different weight classes until finally I accepted my pro card and went on to compete worldwide. And I ended up doing 10 Mr. Olympia competitions. I did 5 Arnold Classics. I ended up winning over 12 pro competitions worldwide.
Just give us a brief history of like where you grew up and all that good stuff.
So my history's quite complex. I was born the youngest of 8. I'm 100% Puerto Rican. And, back in the 70s, 8 children trying to live off of one income wasn't really happening. So the youngest of the children were taken away, and we were put into foster care and group homes. And I was lucky enough to be adopted by a family in Wakefield, the Raymond family. And they also adopted my older brother, Tito. And, which was the luckiest, greatest thing that could have ever happened to me because, he's 5.5 years older than me and always looked after me, always made sure I was okay and that I was doing the right thing as much as I could, and he's what got me into training and into trying to channel any negative energy into a positive. And, I don't know that my life would have went the way it did if it wasn't for him. So I was truly blessed in that situation. So yeah, I ended up growing up in Wakefield. From the age of 6 on, and immediately got into sports, Pop Warner, Little League, and excelled immediately. My brother is one of the best athletes my town has ever seen. So it was a hard act to follow, but it gave me a goal, something to shoot for. A funny story was in 8th grade, we had the pull-up contest, in gym class. And my best friend at the time, Mikey Leone, his number was 22, his football number. And everyone else in class got like 10 or 12. So I ended up doing 22 pull-ups and stopped there. And after class, I'm like, out of curiosity, what's the record? And the guy goes into the sheets and he looks, he goes, oh, it was 23 by a guy named Zoilo Prieto, which was my brother's name. Tito was his nickname. I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, let me do it again. And he's like, all right, next class. So the next class, I end up doing 28 pull-ups and smoking my brother's record. That was kind of a microcosm of how my life has gone. I was always trying to chase him and beat him. And he was a cover model, pretty boy. He was on tons of covers worldwide. And I was more of he's 4 inches taller than me. So I was the shorter, more jacked. And, bodybuilding suited me a little bit better. But I ended up living in Woburn for 10 years and bought a house there, and then ended up getting married and buying a house in Peabody. And that's where we are today.
Nice. When was the first time you actually walked into a gym and started training?
Oh, really young, like 9 years old. Our social worker had bought us a punching bag and some weights, is almost immediately when I was adopted. Like I was 7 when I started lifting in the house, and me and my brother would rig up some stuff in the basement. So we had a pull down and a push down and barbells and dumbbells. And then by the time I was 9 or 10, so my brother was 15. So he had joined a local gym, Olympia Nautilus back then it was called. And we had a lot of the local pros, pro football players would come in and train there. We had Freddie Smirlis. Remember Fred Smirlis? He came in and he trained in there, and was really supportive of us and gave us a giant box of cleats. He was sponsored by Converse at the time. And from 9 years old on, I was bit by the bug, and any opportunity I had to get into a gym, I would do it.
Jose, I know you had mentioned earlier that your genetics have been a gift to you, and I'm sure that is definitely the case. However, to get to where you were in your career, right, to be a national champion, international champion, you must have worked your ass off. Can you share with us some of the principles that you've lived by that have elevated you to that elite status?
Yeah, well, like a lot of other sports, they practice for an hour and then they go on with their life. Where with bodybuilding, it is from the moment you wake up into the moment you go to sleep. And even in your sleep, there's very important aspects that need to be addressed. Like if, the bigger you get, the more likely you are to have sleep apnea. So you're not getting quality sleep. So you're not going to recover. You're not going to grow. So you have to do things to make sure you can sleep. Everything that you put in your body as far as nutrition is measured down to the ounce. I have to make sure I know exactly everything that's going in my body. I have to make sure I'm burning the proper amount of calories every day. So, in the heat of a prep for a competition, I'll be eating 6 or 7 times a day. I'll be doing cardio twice a day, anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour twice a day, plus an hour to an hour and a half of training. And that's if I only train once a day. There are days where I'll do a accessory body part like calves in the morning, calves and abs, and then in the afternoon I'll do back. So, I could be dedicating anywhere from 4 to 5 hours a day of training and cardio, plus the hours of preparation, preparing your food and eating the food. It's not easy. Once you get to meal 6, it's not easy gulping that down. It could take me 40 minutes to eat it because I'm just like trying to get that food in. So yeah, I mean, it is a 24-hour a day. It's unlike any other thing, where they're now learning in the last, the last generation is now learning the importance of nutrition and training to be at the pinnacle, as you say, the pinnacle of their sport. So, the guys, Tom Brady, for example, there's no way he'd be playing at 43 at the level that he's playing if he didn't have a 24-hour approach to his body and his nutrition and his therapies and the stretching and the mobility aspects of the game. There's just no way. That's why back in the 80s, the 90s, I mean, really up until the last 10 years, once you hit 35, you were done. You were not playing to 45 because these guys didn't take care of their bodies. They didn't do the things necessary to make their body survive at an elite level for that long. They would just, like I said, they would practice. They'd go home to their families. They'd drink a couple beers. But they weren't spending all that time on deep tissue massage, on stretching, on yoga, on the nutrition, where Tom Brady has someone for every aspect of his life. And that's why he is who he is. And, I think the more people that take that approach in anything, it doesn't have to be with your body, but with your mind. If you want to be a better businessman, you need some sort of coaching, some sort of therapy, whether it be psychological, something to stimulate you to be better at what you do. I think anyone that takes the time and effort to better themselves mentally, emotionally, spiritually, is going to be a better person, a better businessman, and just be better overall at everything you do. I knew what I was up against. I knew the guys I'd be competing against, and they were unbelievable, these guys. And when I first started beating them, I would look in the mirror and I'm looking at myself. I'm like, really? I just beat that guy? Holy shit. And then I had the confidence to know, you know what? I can be the best at this. I can be number one. The guy that won 7 Olympias in a row, I'm one of only 2 or 3 guys that have ever beat him. That's saying something. That guy, he's the best in the world. And I was able to knock him off, and I was right on his heels his entire career. So, and I know him and I know the approach that he takes, and it is a 24-hour a day approach. And that's the only way you can be the best in this arena. And I believe in any other, whatever it is that you do in your business, with Rich's business and real estate, if you're obsessed with it, obsessed with getting better at it, that's the only way you can be the top of that business, is to have an unhealthy obsession if you want to be the best at it.
Just interviewed Steve DiFilippo, the owner of Davio's, and he was talking about his job, and he said, I don't work. He's like, this is my passion. He goes, this is what I love to do. And it sounds like you're basically saying the same thing.
Yeah, well, you're going to find that in anyone that is hugely successful with their genre, their job, or whatever it is they choose to do. And those people are very lucky because they absolutely love it. From the moment their eyes open in the morning, they're excited about attacking whatever goals they have that day. And I think in order to be good, in order to be happy, you have to find a passion. I could never get up, and be super excited to go do what so many other people do, sit in an office and do, I don't have that. I need to be excited about what I do. Mm-hmm. And, some people are excited about going over spreadsheets and those are the, like Bill Gates, fuck, I couldn't do what he does. That's oh my God, it gives me anxiety thinking about sitting in front of a computer. I'm only sitting here now because I can see people,
Right.
But yeah, you got to be obsessed with whatever it is you do. And as I said, a borderline unhealthy obsession if you want to be truly great at it.
Agreed. So 5 top 3 finishes in the Olympia, and then in 2015 you win the Arnold Classic. Take us through what that was like to be up there next to Arnold.
It was unbelievable. I had met Arnold a few times previously, and I actually met him back in 1998. I did a show in Redondo Beach, California. It was called the Muscle Mania. Used to be on ESPN, and I wasn't used to placing poorly. I placed 5th, and the next morning I went for a long walk, and I was really reconsidering whether I wanted to do this. And I was 22 years old, and I heard a voice going by me. I had my shirt off on the bike path in Venice Beach, and he's like, "Looking good." And I recognized that voice, and I'm like, no way. And I look up, and sure as shit, it's Arnold. He pulled over on his bike, shook my hand. He's like, "You look fantastic. What are you doing? Let me see a bicep." So I started posing for him, and it just all snapped right then and there. I spent probably 10 minutes posing. He's like, "Turn around. Let me see your calves. Oh, you look amazing." And I'm like, if Arnold thinks I look amazing, then I'm onto something. So sure enough, 17 years later, I win his show. I'm on stage in front of thousands of people, and he's handing me this crystal cup, and I'm like, "I got a story to tell you." And I told him the story on stage. I'm like, 17 years ago, I met you in Venice Beach on the bike path, and you gave me a lot of, kind words of encouragement, and that's what got me here today, and it was pretty amazing. But yeah, that year was the culmination of all my years of training. I was at the right age where my body had matured. I was at the right age where mentally I was able to block out any distractions. That year leading up to the Arnold was like March 3rd. And we had gotten over 9 feet of snow in February that year, 2015. Do you remember all that snow we got? I mean, it hadn't melted until like May. And I had to dig out 2 feet of snow every morning to get to the gym. Most gyms weren't open. I'd have to drive over an hour to find a gym to train at, but I got it done. And it was like, that was the biggest test of my bodybuilding career, to see, because a lot of people would have been like, "Screw this, I can't even find a gym that's open, never mind go train." But I was able to get it done. I was so focused. I was so ready to roll. And I had to, at the time, I was living at a friend's house in his in-law apartment above his garage. And I didn't have cardio. So I had to go to the gym to get cardio at, 5:30 in the morning. Mm-hmm. And I had to find a gym that was open that I could do that at. And then I would go back later in the day and train. And I think due to all those distractions, it made me even more focused, and it allowed me for all the stars to align that year for me to be my biggest, hardest, best look. I was 41 years old, where again, a lot of people in a lot of other sports, 41 is old. In bodybuilding, 41 is like the ultimate peak where your muscle matures if you've done all the right things leading up to that.
Right.
And, I was just, in my mind, unbeatable that year. I went to the Olympia and ended up placing second, a very controversial second. And in my mind, I had it won. And, a lot of the fans to this day still think I won it,
So you're behind the curtain at the Arnold, at the Olympia, biggest show in the world amongst the greatest bodybuilders. And they're about to call your name. And what's going through your head? Is it nerves? Is it adrenaline?
I think due to my upbringing, I never allowed myself to get too happy or too sad. I kind of numbed myself. So I didn't of course it's a good feeling to win, but I had this very neutral, like, I was never the guy that would win and break down and cry or get on my knees, or, I would just put a hand up and be like, yeah, I expect to win. I train to win. That expression, act like you've been there before. If I score a touchdown, I'm not going to spike it and dance. I'm supposed to score a touchdown. That's my job. In bodybuilding, I was the same way. I'm like, I train harder than everyone else. I'm more disciplined than anyone else. I work harder than everyone else. I'm supposed to win. So I didn't get too overly excited until, just now, years later, I'm able to look at pictures or watch video and be proud of it and be, really appreciate what I had done. But I never in the moment got too nervous or too happy or too excited or too sad or too disappointed. I prepare for the best and expect the worst, if that's if that makes sense. Like, I'm always prepared for some weird call to happen where I know I should win, but I'm gonna end up in third. That's weird, but it happens. So it's not like football or hockey, you score the goal or you score the touchdown and it's definitive. With bodybuilding, you don't know. I know what I look like compared to other guys, but I don't know who on that judging panel might have a hair across their ass that day, or might like the color blue better than the color red, or it's something stupid. I'm always prepared for it. I never got overexcited, but I'll always have that poster, that picture of me and Arnold. And it's always going to be in the record books of I was the 2015 Arnold Classic champion. And, not to mention the check was pretty good. I was with a great supplement company at the time that gave huge bonuses for big wins. And, I made more money that year than I ever dreamt possible from bodybuilding. I was able to have a very good life from that.
That's awesome.
As far as if somebody wants to be, make themselves successful in not just bodybuilding, but business, life, personally, anything you want to share with us from?
Well, I kind of touched on it earlier. I think, it took me a long time for me to let someone else help me. Particularly because I studied nutrition, I studied exercise, and I always thought I knew everything. It wasn't until I was 37 years old that I actually hired a nutrition coach who's the best in the world, a guy named Chris Aceto. He's unbelievable. He's been at the game way longer than me. And, I had to come to terms with that. Where, like, again, I would look at it, I'm like, Tiger Woods has a swing coach. He has someone that works with him. Michael Jordan had someone that worked with him. Muhammad Ali had a boxing trainer. Why the hell would I think I'm so special that I can't have a coach? So that's a huge thing to allowing yourself to grow, is having the strength to let someone else take the reins and let someone else, trusting someone else who's better than you at it, or who knows more than you. So, reaching out for help in any aspect of bettering yourself, whether it be physical, mental, spiritual, like I said earlier, I think that's a huge thing at getting better at anything, is allowing yourself to say, I need help, and go get the help so you can be better. I can say 100%, I wouldn't have reached the point that I had if it was not for Chris Aceto enlightening me and opening my eyes to certain aspects of what I was doing. And, I used to eyeball everything because I was so intuitive with my body and with food, and I'd know what everything was. But once I had to get a food scale involved and I'd measure 10 ounces of protein cooked, you're eating a ton of food. And I just wasn't eating enough prior to that. So it made a huge difference. So that's the biggest piece of advice I can say is, don't be afraid to ask for help. There's always someone better than you at something, and there's always a way for you to better yourself by reaching out to someone who has a different aspect locked down and you don't.
That's great advice, Jose. Thank you for sharing that. Everything that you shared with us today has been awesome. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity.
Jose, how can our viewers can they follow you on Instagram, Facebook, that sort of thing?
Yeah. Instagram, I'm the Boston Mass, THEE Boston Mass. My website's thebostonmass.com. I'm Jose Raymond on Facebook, and you can email me at jose@thebostonmass.com.
Awesome.
Yeah. And again, we'll put your contact information if anyone's looking for a great coach. I can attest to it. Jose and I have been working together for a little while, and he's the best in my opinion. So all good.
Thanks, buddy.
You got it.
All right, guys.
All right. Thanks again, Jose. And we'll
We appreciate your time, man. Thank you.
Thank you.